Sunday. It'll be 55 years.
Yeah. And it was here in Lockport?
Yeah.
You got married?
Holy Savior Church.
So you're Catholic?
Yes, I'm Catholic. I've always been.
What was the wedding like? It was like modern weddings today, or?
Well, it wasn't a very elaborate wedding because we left the same day to go to West Texas because my husband was working over there, you see. And we moved over there.
How long you lived in West Texas?
The equivalent of a year when I got very sick and I had to come back to Louisiana.
What was he doing in West Texas?
Working in the oil fields.
Where did y'all go for your honeymoon after y'all married?
Well, we went to West Texas. We stopped on the way. It was a long trip in those days. Today you had to go through narrow roads. You know, today you have super highways, but you had to go through narrow.
So it was a wedding and then off to work, right?
Oh yeah.
Your husband was in the service.
4 years I followed him.
And what service was he in?
In Coast Guard.
Coast Guard. And how much did you travel a lot when he was in the service?
Not as much as some of his mates, you know, the ones that he wasn't sent overseas. He was very lucky about that. And only Florida and Texas, and then he got out of the service in Belchase, discharged from the service in Belchase. That's when they declared peace.
In World War II?
Was very, when you heard the news of peace, we were living in New Orleans. Well, the church bells, everything, every noise you can imagine. People were screaming and hollering, crying, you know. Such a break.
Yeah.
Such a break.
What was your husband's name? I never asked you that.
Alvin Delaune.
And do you know what rank he had? Just curious.
It's such a long time ago, I don't even remember.
That's a couple of years back.
Yeah.
Okay. How many children do you have? Do you have any children?
I had 2 children.
What were their names?
Still have 2 children.
Yeah, what are their names?
Mary Kay and Jimmy.
So you've been, most of your life has been in Lockport.
Right.
And how long are you living in this house?
Well, I would say 48 years.
And where were you before this house?
Before we built this house, we were living with my in-laws. I lived with my family and I lived with my in-laws until we built this house. And so.
Okay. So most of the people around here don't get out a lot, but you had pretty much travel outside of Lockport for a change.
Well,
for the service and for
your
husband's job and.
Well, that was by bus at nighttime. Whenever I was able to go with Alvin, I went. You see, I didn't have any children then. We were married 4 years before we had our daughter.
You raised your children in this house?
Right.
So y'all built this house when y'all came to live in it. It wasn't a second-hand house. Y'all built it.
It was not a second-hand house, and it was built with with the money that we bought savings bonds. It wasn't a big house, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we made a down payment on it anyway. And we believed in savings bonds ever since. Always believed in U.S. savings bonds.
Were there a lot of people living in Lockport when y'all first?
Well, in Lockport, but we built in a sugarcane field before there was any other houses, you see.
So this
was a dead-end street.
This was like the first house in a sugarcane field.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. Do you remember, were you around when the first TVs came out?
Yeah, I can remember the radios when you had to put the plugs in your ears. The first radios, that's the only way you could hear them.
So that was a big form of entertainment for a while?
That's it. When the first television I saw was at my folks' house.
Mm-hmm.
We bought a television, and after that, we had a small one, then we had a bigger one as we made more money.
Did they always have cars in Lockport?
Oh yeah, my father always owned a car. But I can remember the buggy days.
Mm-hmm. What kind of car your father had?
Studebakers. You had to have a big car for a big family.
Mm-hmm.
The only car I can remember that he bought. You see, my grandfather had a car, my uncle had a car, so we'd all get a chance to ride. We'd go to Audubon Park, we'd go to the Mardi Gras, and then we had State Fair in Downsonville. In those days, there was a big display of all kind of crafts and animals. It was a beautiful fair in Downsonville. It was very, I think people find more things to do that they got satisfaction out of it, you know. They didn't have to go out of their way. And like I said, they had crafts. It's all stuff that people made and showed at the fair.
I'm out of stuff on this paper. I'm trying to think of some other stuff.
Whatever. Well, I think that's enough. You didn't even ask me my age, huh?
How old are you? You said you were born in 1913, so...
Oh, I see. That gives you my age.
College students can do the math, I think.
Yeah, they can figure that out. You're the one that figured it out, you remember?
Mm-hmm.
With your computer.
Yeah. I need that. My brain doesn't work too good. I don't know. Sure, if I had time to think, I'd think of other stuff.
Oh, we lived in Lockport, but we lived in New Orleans for a good while too. I don't know how long, a couple of years.
That's before y'all had kids? Or after? When you lived in New Orleans?
No, because my daughter was a baby and I used to ride the streetcar to bring her to the doctor for her shots.
Do you have your son yet?
Huh?
Did you have your son yet? Jimmy?
What?
Did you have Jimmy yet?
No. No, Jimmy was born here, Lockport. He was born in the hospital, but I mean, the year we were living here, you see.
So, my mom, Mary Kay, was
4 years apart.
born here, and then y'all went to New Orleans, and then y'all came back, and Jimmy was born
at Hotel Dieu. But I was living at my parents' when she was little, you see. And then my husband got a job in New Orleans, so we moved to New Orleans, you see. And I had to ride the streetcar to take her to the doctor. We lived in shipyard homes. Because she was She was 8 months when Alvin got out of the service.
Mm-hmm.
They called them hut mutts. They had single ones and double ones. And we could only afford the single ones, so it was like one, it was about the size of this room.
It was like a apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And what, he worked in a shipyard?
No, he wasn't out of the service yet.
Okay. So it's a Coast Guard shipyard.
But those little houses were built for shipyard workers, because Maude Delaune worked in a shipyard, and he was living in one of those double hut mutts.
Who's Tommy? Tommy
It was Alvin's brother. And Grace's husband.
Okay.
Sue and them's daddy.
Yeah, I'm have to get all that family tree down pat one of these days.
Go visit Ben, you heard him.
No, I'm just fooling with it.
Go
Visit who? You said I have to go visit somebody.
Go visit, and Grace, she can give you some of the story. Nanny could too.
I don't even know what she looks like. Grace. Do you have a
You
picture
know
of her?
Grace?
You have a picture of her somewhere?
You knew.
I'm sure I've met her before, but I don't remember.
Don't you have a grandson named Ben? That's not coming out of the interview.
I don't have to put all this.
Oh, I see what you mean.
I'm going to transfer it to another tape and just keep what I want.
Oh, I see. Was it Ben that was in that wreck? You remember what time?
Savoy?
Huh?
Ben Savoy?
Ben Savoy, that's and Grace's grandson.
Oh.
That's Dolly's. Her name is Dolly.
Mm-hmm.
She had Susan, Nancy, that's Warren Orsimon's wife, Dolly, and Bonnie, 4 girls.
There's something else I want to ask you, but I don't remember what it was. It's getting late. It's 10:30.
And my husband worked at the Pontchartrain Hotel for
Good old Pontchartrain
gotta
Hotel.
be close to 30 years.
How much in this house comes from the Pontchartrain Hotel? Only you will ever know.
He was in charge of decoration in the room.
But I swear I want to do that. I don't have to show it to the class or anything, but I want to go around with this camera and take a picture of everything from the Pontchartrain Hotel and have just to know. And the swing set,
I don't know.
the rails from the swing set. That was from the railroad.
Well, in my bedroom, those beds and the chest of drawers and the big dresser, that's all from the Pontchartrain, you know. And that's about it.
I have the rails. No, you have those 2 big planters outside.
Oh yeah.
And what about the green part of the back porch? Didn't you say that was?
That was at that came from where did it come from?
You had told me one time.
I think it's from an old convent in New Orleans. That was, I don't know if, you see, that's when he was working for Perry Enrique. And they had to demolish some buildings and rebuild and stuff like that. But in those days, wood was good. This so old, those blondes are so old, and they're still good. You see.
True. And what about the swing set, the rails that it's made out of?
Oh, well, that came from the plantation of Grandpa Claude. That was tires. They had sort of like a car that pushed the sugar cane, brought the sugar cane, you know, like like a railroad, railroad ties.
Mm-hmm.
As you notice how they made this,
Right.
where my clotheslines were. You know.
Now, how are we related to the Clodays?
My mother-in-law was a Clodagh. Granny was a Clodagh.
Papa's mama was a Cloday.
Right.
Okay.